Tonight, the surprise turn in the trial for the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, the defendant testifying in his own defense. Travis McMichael accused of firing the fatal shotgun blast, taking the stand. One of three white men accused of chasing down and murdering Arbery in Georgia. The moment McMichael appeared to tear up, telling the jury it was a life or death situation. Also, day 2 of deliberations in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. The question the jury asked about videos in the case and the defense motion for a mistrial, the evidence they say prosecutors withheld. Big news from Moderna on booster shots for all adults. The Thanksgiving rush, more than 53 million expected to travel, long lines at the airport, gas prices at a 7-year high, the president calling for an investigation, and the holiday storm threat we're tracking. Today's vote in the House, the GOP lawmaker now the first to be censured in more than a decade over a violent video. The Capitol rioter known as the QAnon shaman sentenced today. The Texas schools in a firestorm over race, the new civil rights investigation. And the inmate I first met inside America's largest maximum security prison, sentenced as a juvenile to life without parole, today, after 57 years, walking free.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. With the country awaiting a verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial in Georgia, another closely watched case took center stage today as the man who shot Ahmaud Arbery made a surprise appearance on the witness stand, testifying in his own defense. Travis McMichael, along with his father and a neighbor, are on trial accused of cornering Arbery with their vehicles as he jogged down a street, confronting and then killing him. The case, with its strong racial overtones, focusing on why the men who are white were suspicious of Arbery, who is black. McMichael claiming on the witness stand, "He had my gun. He struck me." The prosecution contends the man had no reason to stop Arbery that day. Ron Allen is covering the trial for us and has the latest.
I want to give my side of the story. I want to explain what happened.
Stunning the courtroom, Travis McMichael, the man accused of firing the fatal shotgun blast that killed Ahmaud Arbery, taking the witness stand in his own defense.
He grabs the shotgun, and I believe I was struck on that first instance that we made contact.
McMichael, the first defense witness, along with his father Gregory and neighbor William Bryan, facing 9 counts, including murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment. Prosecutors say the 3 men hunted Arbery down, trapped him with their pickup trucks, and murdered him. Today, McMichael explaining why he opened fire. 3 blasts, 2 wounding Arbery.
I shot. Why? He had my gun. This is a life or death situation, and I'm going to have to stop him from doing this, so I shot.
Did he stop when you shot?
He did not.
Through the trial, the defense highlighting home security videos that it says show Arbery at least 4 times at night in a neighborhood house under construction, and that McMichael had encountered Arbery near that house 12 days before the fatal encounter.
And goes to reach in his pocket or waistband area.
McMichael insisting he had every reason to suspect Arbery committed a crime the night in question.
That final shot, he disengaged, and at that point, he let go, he turned and continued to run down Southlake. And at that point, I was in shock.
Prosecutors arguing there's no evidence Arbery had ever stolen anything in the neighborhood, nor that the defendants ever tried to make a citizen's arrest. Prosecutors say the defendants deliberately and intentionally murdered Arbery.
You didn't tell your dad this is a really, really bad idea that could go really wrong for us and we should just stay here and call 911. You didn't say that, did you?
I didn't.
Ron Allen joining us now. Ron, what's been the reaction from the family of Arbery to this unexpected testimony today?
I just spoke to his mother, who says she hopes that all 3 defendants testify. She wants to hear in their own words what they were thinking that day. She said that based on the testimony today, she thinks the men made all the wrong and worst possible assumptions about her son, and they had no reason to shoot and kill him.
All right, Ron Allen leading us off tonight. Thank you. Tense hours as well at that courthouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where the jury finished a second day of deliberating the fate of Kyle Rittenhouse as his lawyers made a new demand for a mistrial, this time over some video evidence. Gabe Gutierrez is there.
Tonight, the jurors in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial are apparently wrestling with video evidence. Their first question:
do we view videos in private or in courtroom? So my nightmare has come true.
Attorneys sparred over how best to replay videos for the jury, showing the incident last August when Rittenhouse shot and killed 2 men and wounded a third during unrest following the police shooting of Jacob Blake.
How crucial are the videos to this case?
They are vital. The prosecution put their whole case on a drone video that seemingly appeared out of nowhere, out of thin air.
The defense filing a motion accusing the prosecution of intentional misconduct and withholding evidence. The defense argues prosecutors did not share a high-resolution copy of this drone video until 2 days before closing arguments. The prosecution says it didn't realize it was a lower-quality copy.
Whenever you request a mistrial, you're setting up for an appeal.
Judge Bruce Schrader also addressing questions about why he allowed the defendant to randomly pick the 6 alternate jurors instead of a court clerk, an uncommon practice, but one the judge says has been his policy for about 20 years.
I think people feel better when they have control.
The judge also taking on public criticism of the attorneys in the case.
I'm going to think long and hard about live television trial again next time.
Gabe, folks tend to read a lot into what the jury is asking for. What kind of questions, how many questions do they have today?
Lester, they asked 3 questions today and spent about 45 minutes looking at various videos. Just a short time ago, the judge dismissed the jury for the night, and they're expected back here to resume deliberations tomorrow morning. Lester?
All right, Gabe, thank you. With COVID cases increasing again, Moderna today asked the FDA to authorize booster shots of its vaccine for all adults. Pfizer has asked for similar emergency authorization, which is expected to come as early as this week. Separately, Dr. Fauci noted today that 62 million eligible Americans remain unvaccinated. The pandemic, just one concern as tens of millions get ready to travel for Thanksgiving. Another is gas prices at a 7-year high. President Biden today asking the Federal Trade Commission to investigate whether oil companies are illegally driving prices up. Stephanie Gosk has more on what travelers may face.
Travel this Thanksgiving won't look like it did at the height of the pandemic, but that doesn't mean it's back to normal. More than 53 million Americans are on the move for the holiday. Flight bookings are up over 100% from last year.
Is the system that's out there ready to handle all these people?
Actually, no, it's not. I'm afraid that this year it's going to be a lot more difficult to travel than it has prior to the COVID period.
Airlines are understaffed, and many airports are too. There aren't as many rental cars, and they cost more, averaging nearly $100 a day. Gas prices are up over 60% in the last year. Adding to the headaches, a storm is developing that forecasters say could cause disruptions from the Midwest to the East Coast.
Rain, thunderstorms, strong winds, lake effect snow, and heavy cold wind chills moving Sunday, Monday into Tuesday morning.
Here are some important tips. Buy travel insurance. Show up at the airport 2 hours early for domestic flights. The TSA says it has enough staff, but lines will be long.
Everybody wants to travel. Everybody wants to have a good experience. And I think patience will be key to that.
There will also be lines after security. Not all the stores and restaurants and terminals have reopened. Drink that coffee at home before heading to the airport.
There still is a strain. The staffing shortage has affected the entire travel industry.
And then there are COVID concerns. Case numbers have started to tick up again, especially in the Midwest and the Northeast. Masks are still mandated in all modes of public transportation. The CDC recommends unvaccinated people consider delaying their travel plans altogether. Anyone expecting a hassle-free journey next week might want to do the same. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
Tonight, there's developing news in Southlake, Texas, following the in-depth reporting NBC News has done there on the issue of race and education. A new federal investigation is now underway. Antonia Hilton has details.
In Southlake, Texas, the U.S. Department of Education has launched 3 civil rights investigations at the Carroll School District over unspecified allegations of discrimination based on race, nationality, and gender. Southlake, which is just 2% black, was thrust into the national spotlight in 2018 after a video of students chanting the N-word went viral.
My son has been told that his skin is too dark, that his nose is too big, that our family does not belong in the neighborhood.
For almost a year, NBC News has covered the clash over race and education in this wealthy Dallas suburb.
They don't know what it's like to walk in the shoes of a student of color at Carroll. They never will.
Volunteers spent almost 2 years developing a school diversity plan, but some parents pushed back, launching a lawsuit that effectively killed the plan.
There will be no home for this toxic ideology here in Southlake.
Experts say only 5 to 10% of these type of discrimination complaints become official federal investigations.
And that usually signals that they consider something potentially to be amiss. They're going to look into it more deeply and try to figure out if there have been violations of various federal laws.
I'm hopeful that with the federal government intervening, that it's a wake-up call for everyone.
Robin Cornish, who we first met a year ago, had 5 children graduate from Carroll.
It was bad. It was bad, and it made them, have issues with their self-esteem, self-doubt.
Has this school been responsive to parents like you?
I think that they could have done way better, and we wouldn't be where we are if they had done better. Marginalized students are not protected in this school district.
The school district told NBC News that it is fully cooperating with this process and diligently pulling all documents requested.
The investigations could take well over a year, and if the federal government finds violations, the school district could be forced to make policy changes and could be monitored by the Department of Education for years to come. Lester.
And Tony Hilton, thank you. You can hear much more about all this on our NBC News podcast, Southlake, available now. In just 60 seconds, freedom after nearly 58 years for a man sentenced as a teenager for murder. My follow-up after I first met him in Angola prison. The House voted mostly along party lines today to censure Arizona Republican Paul Gosar and strip him of his committees for posting an animated video depicting himself killing Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In remarks on the House floor, defiant Gosar denied espousing violence. He's now the first congressman to be censured in more than a decade. And the Arizona man known as the QAnon shaman has been sentenced for his role in the Capitol riot. Jacob Chansley, who stormed the Capitol wearing a horned headdress, received 41 months in prison. Chansley apologized today in court, saying his behavior was, quote, indefensible. Tonight in our continuing reporting, Justice for All, freedom in Louisiana for a man imprisoned as a juvenile for murder nearly 6 decades ago. The name Henry Montgomery and his landmark court case have given hope to thousands of juvenile offenders who were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And today, it was Montgomery's turn before a parole board. Today, Henry Montgomery emerging a free man from behind prison gates for the first time in nearly 58 years. The 75-year-old granted parole today here at the Louisiana State Penitentiary, also known as Angola. Montgomery was just 17 when he was convicted of murdering Sheriff's Deputy Charles Hurt in 1963. Hurt was married, the father of 3 children. Montgomery was a juvenile, yet sentenced to life without parole. I first met Montgomery in 2019 while I was embedded in Angola for 3 days for a Dateline special. You were 17 years old when you were sentenced. Do you remember what it was like being 17?
Yeah. Young, wild, stupid.
Until today, Montgomery was one of about 2,000 so-called juvenile lifers in U.S. prisons, people who committed murders before they were adults and given sentences of life without parole. In 2016, Montgomery took his case to the U.S. Supreme Court. The resulting landmark ruling, Montgomery versus Louisiana, gives all juvenile lifers a chance, but as Montgomery would learn, no guarantee for parole. You've had inmates across the country who have gotten out of prison because of you, because of your case, and yet you're still here. How does that make you feel?
Disgusted, but I'm satisfied that somebody reaps the benefits, and I hope a lot of other guys can make it out.
We were there in 2019 as Montgomery prepared for his last parole hearing, packing his bags, thinking he was going home. But he wasn't. His parole rejected.
Unfortunately, Mr. Montgomery, I'm going to vote to deny your parole.
You're holding together.
As long as I got life up, I'm going to keep my mind on trying to get out.
At today's hearing, the family of victim Charles Hurt strongly opposed his release. Hurt's daughter, Linda, spoke.
I don't believe he's sorry.
He made a decision at 17 years old. You know right from wrong at 17 years old.
Watching along today, a group of former juvenile lifers freed from this same prison, including convicted murderer Andrew Hunley, who was the first juvenile lifer to be paroled in Louisiana.
We are the fruit of Henry Montgomery's advocacy, and hopefully we are an example that people do not have to be incarcerated for 50 years before they get a second chance.
And today, Montgomery got that second chance.
You're going to do great.
All right.
You're going to do great.
Montgomery starting his re-entry at a halfway house. Also tonight, 2 of the 3 men convicted in the assassination of civil rights activist Malcolm X 56 years ago are expected to be exonerated. Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam always maintained their innocence. Now, after 22-month-long investigation found evidence was withheld at a trial, the Manhattan DA says he will move to vacate their convictions. Islam died in 2009. Aziz was paroled in 1985. And next, after the American withdrawal, Richard Engel in Afghanistan with an inside look at the dire conditions. Now to Afghanistan, where nearly 3 months after the chaotic U.S. withdrawal, the economy has crashed, creating a heartbreaking humanitarian disaster. Richard Engel is there.
A nurse at a clinic in Herat, run by Doctors Without Borders, measures Farzana's arm. If the band goes red, she's severely malnourished. Farzana is nearly at the end of the scale, weighing 6.5 pounds at 8 months old. As U.S. troops pulled out, the Taliban took over and aid money stopped. Now, the people are starving. Occupancy here is up 70% compared to last year. Ali Umar's mother was herself malnourished, so the baby was born too weak to suckle.
Things have gotten worse since the Taliban came. What little we had went to zero.
The babies here are given a fortified blend of formula. In this ancient city, there is plenty of food. Only the poorest people can't afford it. Like in this neighborhood, where the elders say work has disappeared since the Taliban took over. Then Murad Khan, a day worker, made a shocking admission. Look behind you. You see her? Come here, he says. I swear to God, is she old enough to marry? No, but I sold her. His daughter Benazir is 8 years old. She was sold to another family to marry one of their sons when she reaches puberty.
Do you know what we're talking about?
Benazir doesn't answer, but seems to want to disappear. The buyers haven't paid for Benazir yet. The agreed price, her dowry, is $2,000. As soon as they pay it, they'll come to collect her. Benazir's family survive by begging. They burn trash to bake bread because they can't afford wood. Benazir and her best friend Saliha go to fetch water. The local mosque is kind enough to let them fill their pails. Together, the 2 girls walk back home. Benazir just in torn socks. Saliha has been sold too. She's 7. Saliha's father says he knows she's too young, but that he had a terrible choice to make. Take the dowry now or watch all the family starve.
I'm forced to do this. I'm keeping 5 alive. 1 has to be sacrificed.
Benazir and Saliha sit alone by their homes. The other girls, who like many here use henna to dye their hair red, keep a little distance. Perhaps weary, they too will soon become hunger brides. Relief organizations say more than half of Afghans are at risk of starvation. The Taliban are not hoarding food or stopping aid distribution, and they call on the United States and other governments to unblock funds frozen since their takeover. Lester?
All right, Richard, thank you. I know a lot of that difficult to see and hear, but an important story to be told. We'll take a break. Up next, how a high school football team is inspiring America. Finally, the comeback for a high school team that's inspiring America. Here's Erin McLaughlin.
It's fair to say the Riverside Cubs had gotten used to losing after 7 straight crushing seasons. But this year, the Cubs haven't lost a game. The secret to their dramatic turnaround lies in what also makes them extraordinary.
Don't ever underestimate a deaf person because they can't hear.
The Riverside Cubs players and coaches are all deaf. We talked to them with the help of an interpreter.
We felt that drive. We wanted more of that winning feeling, that big win.
Trevin Adams is the team's star quarterback.
We wanted to dominate all of those hearing teams.
No hut hike for these players. Instead, they signal each other at rapid speed, and it's not easy.
21. Ram. Pepper.
On this field, being deaf is a competitive advantage.
Hearing people don't use their eyes as much, and they're less alert visually than we are. We communicate much better.
They're now the #1 ranked 8-player team in their division, with big plans for the future. Christian Jimenez is a team captain with a message for the hearing world.
Take a look at us as players. We're able to play football. Don't look at us as people who are deaf, that we can't hear, and look down on us because of that. We can do anything. The only thing we can't do is hear.
Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News, Riverside, California.
Go team. That's Nightly News. Thanks for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.